welcome everybody back to a very special edition of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam Cousins, and always when we talk AEW, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Dave Robertson. Good evening, Dave. How are you doing?
Evening, mate. Yeah, really good. Really good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, my friend. Big interview today. Well, obviously, AEW are coming back over to the UK in a few short months' time for All In 2024. And for a big occasion, we had to get a big man involved. And I don't think there's many bigger in AEW than our star right now, the Murder Hawk monster himself, Mr. Lance Archer. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
It's good. It's cold in the UK at the minute, Lance, but that's not a surprise. I'm sure.
It's hot and rainy today in Texas.
Oh, at least you get the hotness. We didn't even get that today. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us on this show. Lance, just quickly before we get into All In and even Forbidden Door you got coming up as well,
Right.
AEW's been around 5 years, and
Yep.
I don't know anyone or a company in 5 years with the exponential growth that
Right.
AEW has had. Has it even surprised you about how big it's got so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a testament to the wrestling business as a whole. I mean, I think, if you see over here, especially in the US right now, I don't really know if there's a day of the week that there isn't professional wrestling on. So it's in high demand, and AEW provides one of the highest products in the business as a whole. I mean, last year's talking about the all-in scenario, and last year what they had 80,000 people at Wembley Stadium, highest what was it, the highest paid ticket
Yes.
purchase event ever. I don't know if I said that incorrectly, but so for things like that to be happening, it's just showing that the fan base around the world wants good professional wrestling, and AEW, like the motto says, is where the best wrestling.
Yeah. And Lance, how would you personally assess your time in the company so far? Obviously, you've been with the company pretty much from the start, well over 4 years
Right,
you've been there. What would you
right.
say about your time so far and what you're looking to achieve in the future?
I would say that my time has been pretty steady. I think everybody's wrestling career and time in companies and the business as a whole has its ups and downs, its ebbs and flows. Mine certainly has that. But I think it has been pretty darn steady. And then I think for the future, I mean, I'm always aspiring for the top, for the biggest spot. A lot of times people go, who is your favorite person to want to work with? Who's your dream match? Who's your dream opponent? Things like that. And my answer almost always is, who's the champion right now? And right now it's Swerve. So Swerve is my dream match, my dream opponent, and with Forbidden Door coming up that you mentioned before, it's a good combination show. It's something that kind of opened the door for professional wrestling and some of the stuff you're seeing around wrestling right now with different companies working together and whatnot. And the fact that we've been working with New Japan, a company that I worked for 9 years with, and the IWGP Championship is going to be, I think, defended by Moxley against Naito. But that's another championship that I would love to obtain one time in my career. So my objective is always to be on top with whichever company I'm working with, and the fact that like AEW is working with New Japan on such a consistent basis. Like I said, either the AEW World Championship or the IWGP Championship, one of those two. That's always where I aspire to go and be.
Exactly that. And speaking of Forbidden Door, I might just move strictly onto that quickly while we're discussing it. Obviously, you
Right.
mentioned there IWGP, your success in New Japan, multiple-time US champion, tag team champion with the good
Right.
old friend Harry Smith, a good friend of the channel
Yep.
there, the British Bulldog son. But obviously, at the moment, you don't have a match at Forbidden Door, and a certain
No.
Jeff Cobb has just offered an open challenge out. I mean, is that someone you'd like
Right.
to throw down the ramp in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'd love a rematch with him. And we just fought at the Resurgence show in
Yes.
Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, and he's oddly strong. He's one of those guys that you see him, you know his background, what he did, his time in the Olympics, everything that he's done in professional wrestling in New Japan. And he got the best of me. He pulled me in for the tour of the islands off the top rope, and he's one of the very few people that can actually catch me out of midair and do something like that. And there's nothing you can really do to stop that once that starts in that situation. So yeah, I would love a rematch in that situation. Not all the participants have been named for the TNT ladder match that's going to be happening, and I have a pretty rich history with the TNT title in the sense that I was challenging for the first ever championship way back in 2020, and then I challenged again in 2021, both at Double or Nothings. I absolutely believe that I should be in that conversation and having at least one of those matches to try to be a part of that TNT ladder match at Forbidden Door. But who knows what's going to happen and what is on the table for who. But I absolutely believe I should be in that picture.
Definitely so.
In regards, and bear with me with this, Lance, it might sound a bit strange, but you mentioned the likes of yourself, Jeff Cobb. I'm not thinking about some of the bigger guys in AEW, Brian
Right.
Cage, Wardlow, Keith
Right.
Lee. There's like an unofficial meat division, if you like. That's what the fans kind of referred to it as. We had the Meat Madness match that should have happened last year, and it kind of happened in a sense, but not as it was true at firstly imagined. Is that something that you think AEW could turn into? Would you have any interest in that in terms of a meat division? When you get in the ring with those bigger guys, are those kind of matches that you enjoy?
Hell yeah. I mean, you can't help but not enjoy them. AEW has some of the most amazing wrestlers in the world. Now that Will Ospreay has showed up in our company and is just tearing the house down with every match he has. And, I've had a couple good ones with him as well. And that dynamic is always fun when you've got the big badass dude who tosses the smaller, more athletic guy around, but then he's able to do some of the most amazing athletic things in the world. But then you transfer over to, the meat division, the meat match, the big men who, when they step in the ring together, it's just meat pounding, and that sounds odd. Madness. Don't take that for any oddness, Anna. But you get these guys that are just running into each other. They're hitting each other. They're making their ring. Sorry if you can hear my dogs; they're going nuts. It's a whole new element when those two kinds of men step in the ring together. Whether it's like a me and a Big Bill, or a Brian Cage, or Claudio and I had a really strong match, a few weeks back. If these kinds of matches happen and these kinds of guys step in the ring together, especially in AEW, because it's kind of, like you said, an unofficial group of men that are there, because we've got a lot of badass, big ass men who can step in the ring and do some of the most amazing things in the world, from me walking the top rope and doing a moonsault off of that, or Brian Cage, who is the machine. We've been trying to have that match for a long time now. When you put that kind of an element in the ring, it's so different, it's so cool, it's so unique. And I think, again, the fan base, the wrestling fan base, when we're talking about wanting wrestling, they love the amazing athleticism and insanity that guys like Will Ospreay can bring when they go out there and have their matches. And the list goes on and on of those guys that I can name kind of in that weight class. But then you have all the big men who are just as talented, can do things that, what Big Bill used to say, he's 7 foot tall and you can't teach that. Well, that's the thing. You can't teach that when you're as big as we are. You can't get any bigger than you are once you get to a certain point. So when two big ass dudes get in there, it's a whole new ball game.
It certainly is. And I definitely want to see the meat division championship. I think that's something said about new titles in AEW. There you go. There's one.
The meat pounding division. I don't know how they're going to do that.
Something along those lines definitely got to happen for sure. Just switching back to All In. Obviously, this is exciting for us. Now, last year, I know you weren't a part of it, Lance. I have a kind of a weird story as well. I also wasn't at All In. I unfortunately suffered heart failure the week before. I got
my goodness. I'm glad it's okay now.
It's fine now. I'm here. I got released literally like 2 days before, and there was a train. I couldn't fly and I couldn't drive home from my family's house. And the only chance was a train, and they had a train strike that day, so I couldn't make it.
Oh gosh.
So tickets are purchased. We're going. Dave's going, and hopefully you're going to be there All In this year. Dave last year.
I'm hoping also.
Go on.
I said I'm hoping also.
Oh, definitely so. I mean, Dave, last year, I think his dad caught Eddie Kingston's shirt or something like that during the match they had there. But when AEW announced that it was on Dynamite on April the 5th last year, they announced that they was coming not only to the UK for All In, but they were going to the biggest stadium in the UK at Wembley to do this. I mean, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, that is a big step to do. But I mean, obviously you knocked it out of the park. Was there like an excitement factor in that locker room going higher and higher when that was announced?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a little trepidation when something like that big is announced, especially for a new young company that's, trying to make new statements every time that we run shows, we run pay-per-view events. When we start traveling internationally, that was a big question for a long time, coming out of the whole pandemic era, was would we start traveling internationally? Would we start coming to the UK? And to do what the company did at All In last year was a statement above any statement that could ever be made. So I think when it's first announced, you're like, holy mackerel, that's some big stuff happening right there. Let's see how this goes. And then the fact that it went, I think, beyond anyone's expectations in any form or sense, I think that just, again, it's a great testament to what AEW is, what AEW can bring, and what the future can possibly be. I'm hoping that this year sees the same kind of success, and that the train can keep moving forward. Like I said, wrestling, wrestlers, companies, everybody has ebbs and flows, ups and downs, goods and bads. So we'll see what happens with this year's, but I think it's only going to be good with Tony Khan and the people that are running AEW. There's no end in sight. I think there's a lot of speculation on the internet one way or another, this and that. And, the internet sometimes is the worst place in the world because they love to be the most negative they possibly can because they're hidden behind that screen. But in reality, there is no end in sight for AEW. There is no, oh, well, this is that and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Everything that's happening behind the scenes is actually really positive. Everything that's happening moving forward is actually really positive. And that's the thing that people don't really see. They can only have speculation. They can only, say what they think or have their opinions based on what they see sometimes on TV or the little bit of things that are supposedly happening backstage. They make opinions based on very small pieces of information. And the reality is there's a very, very, very bright future for AEW. So, don't expect the worst, expect the best, because that's what's coming.
Awesome. And Lance, we speculate sometimes about new wrestlers coming into AEW and what might be along the line. Not because we want to know everything that's happening, we just get excited and
it's just fun.
We do, yeah, exactly. A bit of fantasy booking from time to time. And we were talking the other night about the proposition for a wrestler to go to AEW. Also, such as yourself, you've still got that option to work the indies, to work in New Japan, and that must be something that is really kind of, something really exciting for you and potential people coming into the company. You've got those opportunities to work alongside other promotions.
Yep.
Yeah. Currently, obviously, we're seeing you. You're involved with the Righteous, really charismatic group. How have you found working alongside the Righteous as part of that trio? And are we going to get some of the vignettes that we've seen them do? And we've saw yourself and Jake do vignettes a few years ago when you were introduced to the company. Is that something that you would like to do and a bit more backstory? And we see that on AEW television soon?
Absolutely. It's one of those things that I think we're always pushing to have. The relationship with myself and the Righteous kind of came out of nowhere. I think it's a good one. It's a fun one. The Righteous present kind of, with Vincent, he presents that kind of cool, calm, collected, very methodical, and he's very planned out in what he does. You've got the crazy and Big Dutch, and then you got the chaos with the Murderhawk Monster, and then you've got Jake the Snake Roberts. He's always there for us if we need to, and he's the original snake in the business since he's Jake the Snake Roberts. And I think that combination is a great, fun combination. Us as a group haven't had the greatest success as of yet, but the great part about professional wrestling is all that can change. It can turn on a dime. It can be going from one spectrum to the next, from the lowest to the highest, in a split second. And I think the combination of the three of us, what we each bring to the table, what we can each do, and then, like I said, you add Jake into that element, if and when we're given the opportunity to create some of those cool vignettes, those backstage moments, telling those stories of who they are, who I am, how we work together, using Jake to be a voice at certain times. I think if we are able to create that and give that perspective, it's going to be a really, really fun one. Right now, we have so many amazing wrestlers, guys, girls, and everything. The prospect of even more guys or girls showing up into the company. There are so many, there's very little time, so you have to capitalize the most you can on each moment of time that you do get. We're always in all fighting for those moments, and of course we are fighting for those moments as well, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And if and when we're given those opportunities, we're going to knock it out of the park. And you'll get to see what you're asking about, the kind of the backstory and kind of the personality that is the Righteous, the Murderhawk Monster, and the combination of us as a group.
That'll be really interesting to see. Lance, just before we wrap up, because I appreciate we're quite running short on time. You mentioned Jake there. We've had him on the show before, and he's also just come over here in the UK and done a little tour for a couple of days. And although you're experienced, and a lot of guys in there are experienced, and you've been around and you've done all that, how important is it that you utilize that mind of Jake the Snake when not only when you're doing the vignettes, but when you're in the ring, get him to watch around, just because he may pick up on one little thing that can change everything for a wrestler.
For sure. Yeah, you know, and I think that's the great thing, is that the ones who find the most success in this business are the ones who can, 2024 wrestling is a whole new breed of wrestling by itself. Again, I'll go back to the Ospreys and guys like that present wrestling in a way that has truly never been done before. But the ones who I think are truly successful are the ones who can listen to the minds of the past, the best minds of the past, like Jake, or Dean Malenko still working with us on a regular basis, Jerry Lynn, who's backstage with us. If and when the guys and girls can go to these people and go, hey, can you watch my match? Can you see what I do good, see what I do bad, more importantly, and help me improve upon that? And how can I take what of professional wrestling and how it was, add it into what professional wrestling is now, and create, a combination of the two? I think the sky is amazingly bright, and the future is amazingly bright for anyone who does that. And like for me personally, what Jake has done, I kind of figured out, or I'll say more than kind of, I figured out how to be in the ring. I figured out the Murderhawk Monster inside the ring, from the time I walk out that tunnel to when I'm beating somebody up on the way to the ring, to what I do inside the ring, to how I win or lose, or however I go throughout my matches. I figured that part out. What Jake did for me when we first got paired together, and then throughout the time that we've been together, is the ability to speak, to give the Murderhawk Monster a voice beyond the voice that you hear inside the ring when I'm just beating the crap out of people. When I get a chance to speak and I'm backstage, or we're on a promo seg in the back, or if and when we ever get actual mic time in the ring and they want me to speak, what he's been able to do for me is teach me how to give that voice to a monster that everybody sees just wrecking house inside the ring. And there's a very different dynamic when you add those two, because if I spoke the same way I act in the ring, you probably couldn't understand anything I say, and it would be so chaotic and so crazy that it probably wouldn't be worth hearing. But what Jake can do is he can teach you how to speak in such a smooth, subtle, and dastardly way that you can give that voice in a way that people don't expect, and then can enjoy both sides, that dichotomy of what the Murderhawk Monster is, or anybody that comes to them with that kind of questioning and advice.
That's brilliant, and that's really important to know. But as we now wrap up, I need to just do a couple of plugs for AEW. Of course, All In, this coming August the 25th. You can still get tickets, ticketmaster.co.uk. Make sure you do that. Join all of us there as well. Of course, Forbidden Door is on the 30th of June. So go to ticketmaster.com. Stacked card already, and more to be announced this coming week on Dynamite. Speaking of Dynamite, this coming week, Will Ospreay, you mentioned putting the title on the line against Ray Phoenix in what should be an absolutely brilliant match. Also, Jack Perry and Dustin Rose in a qualifier for the TNT ladder match. But you can also catch AEW Dynamite over here on the UK, 9 o'clock on Fridays on ITV4, Rampage on Tuesdays, and Collision on the Wednesdays. And for the good old friends over in the States, of course, it is 8 p.m. Eastern on TBS for Dynamite, and TNT and Collision are both on, Rampage and Collision are both on TNT. On a Saturday nights, all right for fighting on Collision. But Lance, it has been fantastic to hear from you. Thank you so much for taking your time to come and talk to us today. And for AEW, Dave, you're the one that serenades us off with your Kenny Omega do it. So please go ahead.
It's time to bid you adieu, goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang.